In today's video, we're going to talk about the friction zone and throttle control. And we're going to hit on several key elements. What is the friction zone and how do you properly use it? Why you should always be in the friction zone when you're making your U-turns. Why you should never have the clutch lever fully released when making your U-turns. And how your clutch and throttle work together. And finally, at the end of this video, I will give you a tip that will help if you're always feeling like you're falling when you're making your U-turns. Hey guys, I'm Paul, the Motor Guy, and welcome to my ProRider Central Texas YouTube channel. If this is your first time here and you want to improve your skills and take your riding to the next level, then hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos. This is part 2 of a 5-video series on how to improve your U-turns. If you missed part 1, be sure to go check it out. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give you 2 clutch control drills and 2 throttle control drills that will surely improve your clutch control and your throttle control. Okay, first let's talk about 2 things that keeps the motorcycle upright without getting too technical. The first thing is momentum. If you're riding the motorcycle at a high rate of speed and you fall off, what happens? That's right. The motorcycle will continue on its path to travel upright until it loses momentum, then it will wobble and fall over. We've all seen those videos. So, if you're traveling at slow speeds and don't have enough momentum, the only thing that keeps the motorcycle from falling is having power to the rear wheel. Now, what I'm about to say next may just blow your mind, but bear with me. Now, many people will say that the throttle controls the speed of the motorcycle, but it depends on how you look at it. I could argue that the clutch lever controls the speed. Now, let me explain. If I was to pull in the clutch lever fully and roll on the throttle, the motorcycle would not move, which we all know. Now, if I was to fully roll on the throttle, I could still rock the motorcycle back and forth by slowly releasing the clutch lever to the friction zone and then pulling it in again, as demonstrated in this video. Now, if I was to roll on the throttle fully and let the clutch lever all the way out, the motorcycle would quickly accelerate depending on how much throttle I was given. So as you can see, the clutch lever controls how much power is released to the rear wheel, not the throttle. Now let's let this marinate for a few. So now that we've determined that the clutch lever controls the speed of the motorcycle, let me say this. You should never have your clutch lever fully released when making a U-turn, because any input that you give to the throttle will result in that power being released to the rear wheel. And then we roll off the throttle to control your speed, it will cause the motorcycle to jerk back and forth, which we don't want, as seen in this video. So now that we've covered all that, let's talk about what is the friction zone. The friction zone is when the clutch is partially engaged, allowing just enough power to the rear wheel for forward movement. Now, if we were to continue to hold the clutch in that position, the motorcycle would continue to roll forward slowly. This area is called the friction zone or the gray zone. There are only a couple millimeters between the friction zone and being fully engaged. This is very important to know because there's very little clutch movement when using the friction zone to make a U-turn. As you can see in this video, I'm making 3 consecutive 360s. Now look at my clutch lever. During the 360s, there is little to no movement. And also notice that I'm using all 4 fingers on the clutch lever. By using all 4 fingers on the clutch lever, it gives you more control when it comes to making minor adjustments. Now, if you're making a U-turn and you feel like the motorcycle is going to fall, just slowly release the clutch lever out a little bit more. This will release a little more power to the rear wheel, which will cause the motorcycle to maintain its landing angle or slightly stand up. Now, let me tell you why this is easier said than done. Now, if you were to push me from behind and I was falling forward, my natural instinct would be to put out my hands to catch my fall. Now, I found from my own experience and from training numerous motor officers that the rider's natural instinct when they feel like the motorcycle is going to fall is to either put their foot down and or pull in the clutch, which is the opposite of what we need to do. Remember, if you pull in the clutch lever, all the power is removed from the rear wheel and the motorcycle will fall like a rock. Now, it takes practice to break that natural instinct that we talked about and to reprogram our brains to respond with the proper response, which is to slowly release out more clutch lever instead of pulling it in. And now that we've covered the clutch and why it is important, let's talk about the use of the throttle. Whenever making a slow U-turn, you should maintain constant power to the rear wheel. Your RPM should be maintained anywhere from 1200 to 1500 revolutions per minute. This is what we motor officers call reserve RPM. Now, the 1200 to 1500 revolutions per minute does not have to be exact, but remember, you should not try slow U-turns at idle speed. So now let me explain why it's important to have reserve RPM. So you're on your motorcycle and you're making your U-turn. The bike's leaned over and you feel like you're gonna fall. So if you slowly release the clutch lever just a little bit more, that's gonna release that stored up power to the rear wheel. And it's gonna cause a better response from your motorcycle. If you're idling through your U-turns, two things can happen. One, this could cause your engine to stall, which you definitely don't want. Or you may not have enough power to keep the motorcycle from falling when you slowly release that clutch lever. So here's a video demonstrating what reserve RPMs sound like. The RPMs in this video are at about 1700 revolutions per minute. Also notice that I maintain the RPMs until I complete the U-turn and the motorcycle is back upright. Now you don't want to look down at your tachometer when making U-turns. So it is important to learn what your motorcycle sounds like at 1200 to 1500 revolutions per minute. Now remember, this does not have to be exact, just not idle speed. Now please understand, to become proficient at these techniques, it takes practice, practice, practice.
And we in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice.
Now let's talk about several drills that can help you develop these techniques. The first drill is the friction zone drill. This is simply rocking the bike back and forth using the friction zone. This drill can be done in a parking lot or while you're sitting at a red light. The purpose of this drill is to learn where the friction zone starts to engage on your motorcycle and to build muscle memory to the point where you're able to engage the friction zone without thinking about it. Drill 2 is also a friction zone drill. It's the 2x4 drill. You're going to stop the motorcycle with the front tire tight against the 2x4 board, looking straight ahead. Release the clutch lever slowly and roll on the throttle with just enough RPMs, about 1200 to 1500 revolutions per minute, to move the front tire smoothly across the board. The same process will be repeated when the rear tire comes in contact with the 2x4. These next two drills will be throttle control drills. So drill number 3, figure 8 with no clutch. In this drill, you will make a U-turn to the right and then a U-turn to the left in a figure 8 pattern. You can go as wide as you need to in this drill because this is not about making tight U-turns. You will adjust your speed by slightly rolling on and off the throttle. In this exercise, you will not use any rear brakes and no clutch. The goal is to have smooth throttle control and no jerking back and forth when completing your figure 8. Drill 4 is the 360. This is a more advanced throttle control drill. You will do a continuous 360, again using the throttle to control your speed with no clutch or rear brakes. Again, go as wide as needed on this exercise. So now some few tips on doing drills. Whenever doing any clutch control drill, it is important to take frequent breaks. This will keep your clutch from overheating. Also, when doing any drill, be sure to use a big empty parking lot with no hazards. You should always take somebody with you when you're training, just in case you go down and need some help. Now for the tip I mentioned in the beginning of this video. This tip will help you if you always feel like you're falling or having to put your foot down because the bike has that sudden dip as you start your U-turn. The tip is to set your friction zone early. This means to get into the friction zone before you turn the handlebars to make your U-turn. First, I will explain why that sudden dip occurs. Then I will explain how getting into the friction zone early will correct it. Remember, if you don't have momentum, you must have power to the rear wheel to keep that motorcycle from falling. So this is what is happening when you have that sudden dip. As you're turning the handlebars to make that U-turn and you have your clutch lever all the way in or fully disengaged, you have no power to the rear wheel. So your motorcycle is actually coasting around the turn. This is what makes the motorcycle have that quick dip that makes you uneasy and you want to put your foot down. Now, as you get more comfortable with your friction zone, you will be able to stop the fall of the motorcycle by simply releasing the clutch lever to the friction zone. But until then, you must get into the friction zone before you start your turn. And by doing this, you will already have power to the rear wheel. So when you start to turn your handlebars to make that U-turn, you will have a gradual lean of the motorcycle instead of that quick dip. And also, the feeling that you should get when you're making your U-turns is that the motorcycle is pulling you around the turn, not coasting. Now I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you now have a better understanding on how to use the clutch and the throttle to make better U-turns. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like it and share it. And check out part 3 of this video series on trail braking. And also hit the comment section below and let me know any drills that you have used to help you with your clutch and throttle control. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Until next time, ride safe.